Hi, Matt with etrailer. If you're looking for a rack that's going to be able to handle those really heavy e-bikes and make loading and unloading them a lot simpler, then I might have the bike rack for you. And today we're going to be taking a look at the Yakima OnRamp LX bike rack, and we're going to show that on our 2023 Nissan Rogue. Like I was just saying, this is great for those heavy e-bikes. So that's you're going to have a weight capacity of 80 pounds per bike, and we're going to be able to carry 2 bikes. And that's really not going to affect our tilt-away too much. But to make that process easier, this is going to come with a ramp. Now I'll talk about that a little bit later, but let's take a look at that tilt-away first. Now the way this works is we're going to have 2 pins in it, and that's just giving us more support. And the way it's recommended to do this is to remove this first pin on our passenger side, because this one is a little bit more tricky to remove, a little bit more of a hassle, but it's doing the bulk of keeping everything level. Now, that other pin, we can find a better spot to get a little bit more control of our rack so we can tilt this away. And all that's going to involve is pulling this pin. I like to lift up on mine a bit just so I can get a little bit of a better grip on it. And then I'm just going to let this fall back. Now, when you do have those heavy e-bikes on here, it's definitely something to think about because that's a lot of weight coming at you. But now we have the ability to open up our hatch. And the bike we have today does have some pretty wide handlebars. And if you look at this, we're just barely going to make contact. Now, if this was a bike that I owned, I wouldn't mind just pulling this back just a little bit, just so I can open this the rest of the way. The reason why you might want to open up your hatches if you wanted to go shopping, put some things in the back, you have your bike back here, or if you want to get ready for your ride, grab your gear, maybe tie your shoes, anything like that to get ready. Now when I'm going to close this down, I'm going to pull my bike back a little bit too. As you can see, I'm just barely applying pressure and it's still going to work. Now to get it back up into that seated position, I'm going to come to the front of my rack and lift up with both hands. And then it'll click back into place. And then it's important you come over here and you put that secondary pin back into place. Now we're going to take a look at how our bike is sitting on the back of our vehicle, and that's going to really range on what type of bike you have. But this is going to be a good general rule to think about because the Rogue is a pretty tight spot, or has a lot of tight spots, especially for bikes. As you can see, we only have a few inches in between our handlebar and our back window. And like I said, these are some pretty wide handlebars, but I still feel pretty good about this, honestly, because even when I'm really pulling on this a lot, we're not going to make contact. But what you've been waiting to see is going to be that ramp. So let me show you how to use that. So we're going to come to the rack, and that's something I do like about this design, that it's integrated to it. We just have to loosen up this knob. Once that knob is loosened up, you just remove this and pull it through here. Now if you have 2 bikes loaded onto this rack, that might be a bit awkward to do, but it's definitely nice that it's on the rack and it's really hard to lose. I'll loosen up this secondary hand knob and then separate these. Now I will say this is a decent amount of work for a ramp to use, and what we're looking for is to really make sure that both ends are in the correct spots. You want to make sure those 2 bolts are going through. I'm going to go through these 2 openings. If I can keep a hand on this rack, hold it down in place. And when we do this, we want to make sure we use both knobs, because when you are wheeling those heavy e-bikes over here, you want to make sure this is secure. Then we'll come to the front of our bike, so it's a little bit easier to wheel off. You can put this on either side if you like, but we're going to have these 2 nibs on the front of it. That's how you're going to grab on to this opening right here. Now the trick to do this is to put this in at an angle and try to get the grab on, which can be kind of tricky if you have larger wheels like we have today. After when you get it in there, it'll seat just like this. And to show that ramp in action, I'm going to remove my bike. I like to start with these straps that connect our wheels down. It's nice too that we have these chocks behind the wheel. They give us a little bit more support. I like to tuck this away in this little pocket right here so we don't get caught up on it. I'm just going to repeat that on the back side too. And with this all put away, I can move to my center mass. And this center mass is a pretty clean design. And all I have to do really is find this tab right here, push on it, and then I can remove this. And this is really what's given us majority of kind of like good hold we're getting on the bike. Now, if you have any carbon frame bikes or anything with a really nice paint job, I'd really think about this because you probably don't want to scratch up that finish. All we have to do at this point is just push on it. It's going to wheel right off. And on the Rogue, we're really not getting a really steep incline. That's something I do like. That is going to be relatively easy to push on and off. Earlier, you probably saw me really struggling trying to make all the connections on this ramp. And if that is a deal breaker for you because you're really only looking at this one because you want something with an included ramp, another really great option is going to be the Hollywood Racks Destination e-bike rack. And its ramp is going to work a little bit different. It's going to have a telescoping ramp. You just loosen up at the bottom, it expands out, then when you're done, you can fold it back into place. Doesn't take very long to use. Now the downside to this one is not integrated on the rack. So you got to find it somewhere inside your vehicle to store it, which isn't a big deal for me, but it could be a big deal for you, especially if you want everything in one spot. With our bike off, let's really just focus on the rack itself now and how it interacts with our vehicle. The first measurement I'm going to get is going to be our ground clearance. That's going to be from the ground to the lowest point furthest out. That's going to be 16.5 inches. And of course, when you have those heavy e-bikes on here, that's going to drop down by maybe an inch or two. But that's still pretty solid because the Rogue is a pretty low vehicle. And what's really helping us out right now is going to be the design of the carrier kind of being at an angle, lifting upwards. So that's definitely a huge benefit to this design. Now for the overall distance is going to stick out from our back bumper to the back of the carrier. That's going to be a little bit under 25 inches. That's not too bad. It's something to think about if you're in some really tight spots, like a parking spot or garage. If you want to save on that space, you can actually fold this up. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to come over here, and I want to make sure I fold this mass first. And all you have to do is pull this lever. That's going to release this. And then you can push this down, and it will grab on into place. Now, sometimes you might have to adjust these clamps at the side of it so they can really fold down into place. And these are something definitely to think about if you're driving around like this. And that's why I recommend folding it up so you don't have these really low points. The way we're going to fold it up now is going to be by removing these two pins. So again, I'm going to start with our passenger side and then go to our driver's side. All you have to do at this point is just lift up, push it, and then come to the bottom because you should kind of feel this click into place, just like that. And plug in your passenger pin. With that secured, you'd probably notice this is pretty close to our vehicle. So let's get that measurement first. So we're actually going to make contact with this strap. That's an easy solution. Just pull that in just a bit so it's not making contact. What I'm more concerned about is going to be these more solid points. Like right here in the center, we have this mass. That's going to stick out about 1.5 inches. Now the good thing about this carrier is it's a very solid design. So I don't think it's going to be very likely for you to make contact with your vehicle, but we can get what the total distance it is going to be sticking out. And now if we go from one of these clamps, I'm going to adjust the strap so we get a better idea where we're sticking at. That's going to be about 8 inches from these clamps. Now these are adjustable if you want to bring them in just a bit. the furthest point might be the back of this frame. And that is just going to be a little bit under 6 inches. So that's going to save you a ton of space overall. And the way it's going to interact with the back of the Rogue in this position is pretty good, honestly, because we're going to sit right beneath our license plate, so that's still going to be visible, and we're not going to block your backup camera. Now, you probably pick up a little bit in that view, but you'll still be able to use it. And the taillights and back window won't be obstructed at all. And the way this is going to install is we're going to have this 2-inch shank that goes into your 2-inch hitch receiver. And then we'll have this anti-rattle bolt that goes across and connects to this lock cord. So that's going to do 2 things for us. The anti-rattle bolt is going to make this a lot more secure. We're not going to have any shaking occurring from this rack. And we're going to have this lock cord just for that additional security. In my opinion, I think this is a really solid option if you are looking for that choice that's going to be able to carry your heavy e-bikes and going to be really easy to load too. And I also really like the design. It is pretty clean looking on the back of the Rogue. Now, like I was talking about earlier, if you're looking for something that's going to have overall just a simpler ramp to use, then I'd recommend the Hollywood Racks Destination e-bike rack. Especially if you are looking for something that's quick and easy to fold out and you don't mind storing it inside your vehicle, then that would be my choice. Now, if you're looking for that ramp still, but you don't mind putting it together every now and then, but you really like how this rack functions and how it looks, then this is going to be my choice for you. But that was just a look at the Yakima OnRamp LX bike rack on the back of our 2023 Nissan Rogue. I'm Matt, thanks for watching.